This is part 4 of Federalist 84. Like I've told you before, this playlist is not going to have any graphics or fancy stuff on it. But I've got this map again in front of you just to show you that this is the yellow area, just to remind you again. Yellow area is where the 13 colonies were, and they revolted against the British rule. Okay, and as you know, they got these lands to this area east of the Mississippi River. This is Mississippi River. But the reason I just put this map on there is that when you're studying American history, it is extremely important to remember the land that became available to Americans before your generation. And that has immensely shaped American history and civilization. And if anybody tells you otherwise, they're fools. So just keep that in mind. Majority of these people that were living in the United States, what became the United States right after the Revolution, a vast majority were living right here, close to the coast. Okay, these areas were sparsely populated. Not too many people lived there. So you've got all this land ahead of you. And then another thing too, I bring this up because I want you to also remember constantly when you read the Federalist Papers, these papers were written, the Constitution was written, these debates took place when it was really hard to go from one place to another. I already mentioned in one of the Federalists that somebody here in what became the state of Maine was wanting to travel just a little further south to go to the Massachusetts ratifying convention, because Maine at that time was part of Massachusetts. It took him 6 days to get there, and it was not that far away, but 6 days. Just constantly keep that in mind when we're going through these Federalist Papers. And the reason I brought this up is because, like I promised in part 1 or part 2 of this Federalist, I'll just be reminding us of some of the figures, some of the professors' names, some of the important things that I've asked you to kind of reflect on as we've come along, as we have read these papers. So just focus on how vast this land was going to be for the people who came here in 1780s and the future generations. Okay, I'll start with paragraph 7. It has been several times truly remarked that bills of rights are in their origin stipulations between kings and their subjects, abridgments of prerogatives in favor of privilege, reservations of rights not surrendered to the prince. Such was Magna Charta or Magna Carta, obtained by the barons, sword in hand, from King John. The British and even the Americans, they always say the original document of their liberty, indicating their freedoms and liberties, Magna Carta, written in 1215. King John was just getting out of hand, and the barons that lived in Britain, they demanded that he respects certain rights of theirs. And he accepted to it. The Great Charter, Magna Carta, was written, and that's where the beginning of the British freedom, and by extension, Americans living in the colonial times, they dated their freedom back to then. Then he says, such were the subsequent confirmations of that charter by subsequent princes. Such was the petition of right assented to by Charles I in the beginning of his reign. Such also was the declaration of right presented by the Lords and Commons to the Prince of Orange in 1688 and afterwards thrown into the form of an act of parliament called the Bill of Rights. Okay. In 1628, Charles I, again, he was not respecting the parliament. So the parliament gave him a notice, said, petition of right, you're violating what belongs to us by messing with taxes, this and that. At first, Charles I listened, but then a year later, he just decided to do what he wanted, and he dissolved the parliament and ruled till 1640, and that's kind of leading up to the English Civil War. So he says we already learned from that part, that horrible part of the British history. Then we were lucky enough to force William and Mary, the King William from Orange, part of Holland in Germany, to actually become our kings, but we made him, we made sure that he assents to the Bill of Rights that we'd presented to him. So it's pretty funny. It was a conditional monarchy. You come in, you become our king, but the first thing you're going to have to do is accept this as a great revolution. We have a Bill of Rights. And so this is what they're talking about. I'm giving you a superficial version of it, so that's why I'm hoping that you will, if not read, but watch some of these good documentaries about the British history and British system. I'll continue reading. It is evident, therefore, that according to their primitive signification, they have no application to constitutions professedly founded upon the power of the people and executed by their immediate representatives and servants. So he says, ours is totally different, a different constitution. Our constitution is a republican form of constitution. We, the people, are fountain of power. We are the ultimate authority, not the king, not the parliament, but we, the people. And then he'll continue, here, in strictness, the people surrendered nothing. And as they retain everything, they have no need of particular reservations. And then he reads from the preamble of the Constitution of the United States. We, the people of the United States, see we, the people, in capital letters, to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. So we are the people who ordained this Constitution, not a king, not a president, not a senator, not a Supreme Court justice. We, the people. So we don't need to worry about some of the things that people have to worry about in the British system. Here is a better recognition of popular rights than volumes of those aphorisms which make the principal figure in several of our state bills of rights, and which would sound much better in a treatise of ethics than in a constitution of government. So he says, just that one statement, the preamble of the Constitution, that itself says 1,000 word, it's almost like 1,000 provisions in a constitution guaranteeing your rights. It says, what else do you need? What worries do you have? Then the next paragraph, but a minute detail of particular rights is certainly far less applicable to a constitution like that under consideration, which is merely intended to regulate the general political interests of the nation, than to a constitution which has the regulation of every species of personal and private concerns. If therefore the loud clamors against the plan of the convention on this score are well founded, no epithet of reprobation will be too strong for the constitution of this state. But the truth is that both of them contain all which in relation to their objects is reasonably to be desired. So again, we can't in detail specify every freedom, every liberty that you all have. We've just generalized it, and nobody is going to disrespect your rights. But if we are to mention everything, that would not be a small constitution. That would be a constitution of thousands and thousands of pages. And we don't want to do that. The Constitution should just give you the framework of the system that you're going to be living under. Again, as I said, as you can see, I don't have any fancy maps to show you stuff, so that's why I said for the beginning, watch PBS television series, miniseries Liberty. They at least show some map of some of the colonies, and you'll get a better picture of what's going on there. So I'll stop here, and I'll try to not talk as much and just read, going through the next quite a few paragraphs, because like I said, this is the second longest Federalist, and there's no need for me to go on and on. So when we come back, I will just try to read the text to you.